Hi everyone, and welcome to our little conversation with myself and Greg. I'm super excited this evening to be hosting this conversation to announce that Greg will be joining Curious Consultancy. So rather than put something out on social media that is a lot of heavy copy and a nice picture of Greg and welcoming him on board, I wanted to welcome him with open arms and have this little conversation with him, so that you get to know him for my existing clients and for any prospective clients. Just to tell you a bit about him, his background, and also at the end of this little conversation, there is some interesting news about some free resource that we're going to be launching in the next few days.
So I'm Greg Bateman. By day, I'm a professional rugby player for Leicester Tigers at the moment in the Premiership, although we obviously also can't work at the moment, so I'm on Zoom calls most of the day. And by night, I am an MBA student or finishing my MBA, and I also have my own business interests in beer and coffee, and a very small amount of stock investing, although I don't do that at the moment because most of that seems to have gone fairly south as well. So Charlotte and we met, I believe, 3 years ago now, with her other business, Brand New Sport, and we shared the same passion for sports people after what they do for their profession and how they make that transition. And I think I've always been quite active with what I do, and we just sort of hit it off really, and have kind of shared a lot of those same passions from there on. So that's how we're here, I guess.
Yeah, so at the beginning made me smile. It's like you're a superhero by day, I am by evening. But that's kind of what it's about, right? Because I think why we will work well together is that you've obviously got a lot of experience from being an elite athlete, and obviously that's coupled with business experience. And I guess, from my perspective, always working for big US corporates, so Coca-Cola, Walt Disney, and Nike, and then combined with your sport background, I think it will be a really good combination moving forward.
I hope so, and I think probably the only thing that I'm nervous of portraying is, and like I've said to you before, I think lots of people think that business has got loads to learn from sport, and I do think that's true. I think ultimately I've spent half of my life in a high performance environment and dealing with team dynamics and group dynamics and really good leaders, really bad leaders as well. And I think I've got a good understanding of that stuff. But I think what I really want to avoid is I certainly don't intend on making clumsy comparisons of sport to business, because I know myself, I find it a bit, insulting's maybe a little bit too strong, but say for example, we have the military that come in and talk to us about how we need to get better on the pitch. They can talk to us about what their military strategy is going into war and whatever, but our situation doesn't translate exactly because it's not life and death, and we're not on the front line in their exact situation. So I just think that what I'm really conscious of, and why I'm so pleased to have teamed up with you, is that we're hopefully bringing the best of both worlds, rather than me trying to sort of force what I think the best of my world is onto others. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's why, when I got to the point where I realised that I didn't want Curious to just be about me, and that's kind of what it's been for a while, I was very conscious about finding somebody that kind of had very similar kind of like-minded opinions and beliefs, I guess, but also that kind of was in this for the right reasons. And I think it's quite simple for me to say, well, obviously my two worlds have collided with Brand New Sport helping elite athletes transition out of sport. It would be quite simple for me to just say, well, Greg, come on board, because it's simple, but it's not that. And I think that your background, having ran business, having competed at an elite level in your sport, having now kind of transitioned into student, you've kind of gone through all of these transitions. And I think that's what I liked about the conversations that we've been having, is that you've got so many different dimensions. We share a lot of similarities, but you've got so many new and different ways of approaching curious and the consulting industry. I think that's what was really big for me when we've been having these conversations.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm still waiting for my Nike discount, to be honest. But
me too. So I think us combined coming together will be great. So Curious was built 3.5, 4 years ago when I left Nike. So I was at Nike for 13 years as a director there. And before that, as I say, with other big US corporates. Two little people came along, and my kind of career and aspirations didn't change. They just altered a little, and I just kind of realised that I wanted to be around a little bit more to see my kids grow up. But at the same time, I kind of felt like I'd got this itch that I wanted to build a business, and I kind of knew that if I didn't do it now, I never would. So I very naively went out into the big brave world and decided to build Curious. Very simply with the premise of, I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing, I've got a business degree. I went back to uni to do my MBA as well. And I kind of felt like, wouldn't it be interesting if I can package up everything that I've learned from 19 years of working for big brands and packaging it up into support and consulting packages for SMEs and startups. So kind of that's how I kind of started out, was working with small businesses and startups on their marketing plans, their strategy. And I think where Curious is now has kind of moved a stage further. So what we kind of now offer is everything from direction on leadership to how to bring about change within organizations, to how to build abundant organizations through the work we do with culture and building strong cultures, to marketing planning and branding, to marketing mentorship. So it's kind of like having a MD/marketing director in your pocket is kind of how I describe what we do. And I think that having you on board with, as I say, similar skill sets, but also very different, I think it'll be a really interesting moment for us to kind of springboard the business.
Definitely. Yeah.
So thinking about, obviously we know a little bit about you from an elite athlete perspective and the stellar career that you've had, but it'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit more about your background from a business perspective, because I'm very mindful that you've grown businesses and you are growing businesses now, as well as playing rugby.
Sure. Well, thank you for the stellar career tip. I'll make sure to copy that quote. So my very first business, I won't include selling my mum's cake at schools. That's, I didn't pay tax on that, so I can't include that. But my very first business was a serviced accommodation set up in Leicester. We had 10 serviced apartments, and we were the first serviced accommodation provider in the city. And I think that was a kind of amalgamation of a few things. And I was really interested in property and had done a few flips and done a couple of deal sources for people, a lot of empty homes work. And I think I was kind of keen to have more of a cash flowing business. And I knew that the Leicester City Council were bidding for hoteliers to come and build hotels in Leicester because the hotel occupancy rates were really high. But there's not a great deal of space around, hence why Leicester Tigers are trying to build a hotel on their land at the moment. So what I did was I found a couple of apartments right in the middle of town in High Cross and started doing them on a service basis. So on booking.com, Airbnb by the night, and it killed it. I couldn't believe sort of how quickly it went out. So what I tried to do through there was just sort of build a model that we could then exit and sell. And through a bit of good fortune and hard work, we got to the position where we could have exited, and then we were pretty unlucky with some decisions off the back of that, plus some personal life issues, which meant that it was probably the right time to walk away from that business. But the long and short of that was we built to 10, and we were given the seat, or given we acquired the seed to go and buy our own block. Then we would have owned our own asset, and we could have had our block of 54 apartments in the middle of Leicester. Now, in the process of doing that, there was 3 other enormous service accommodation builds of 300 plus units that got approved at the same time. And then with things not working out on a personal level, just decided it was probably the right time to walk away from that rather than trying to fight an uphill fight. However, the things I think I learned from that business that's probably more interesting to people rather than just listening to me waffle on about that is 2 things. Is one, it was called Thriving Spaces. So I'm a big values guy, and I know we actually spoke a bit when I was setting it up, and I always wanted to really understand what the why, the purpose was of staying in one of my apartments rather than staying in the Hilton. And I really wanted to create spaces that people could thrive in rather than just, you can have a bed and here's a couple of dirty old tea bags that have probably been there for 6 months and the UHT milk and off you go. Whereas actually, we were looking after guests that they had their own bedroom, which was separate to the lounge, so they could put the baby down to sleep and then the parents could have their own evening. We were providing freshly roasted coffee, wine, beers, Pig's tea, fresh water, fresh milk, the lot, along with all the other stuff that you get. But and vanity sets and handmade soaps and handmade chocolate and all that stuff. And that sounds like, oh my God, you've killed all your profit margins straight away. But because the whole value and the purpose of what we tried to achieve was about creating these spaces that people wanted to thrive in and stay in for a long period of time, it meant we could charge more, frankly, because that's what we needed to do to make it sustainable. But also because it was such a nice place to be, and at some point maybe we'll get some pictures of the apartments up, we weren't getting the 1 and 2 night stays, we were getting the 3, 4, 5 monthers. So they're more profitable, you don't have to turn them around as much. And we were really looking after people. So there's somewhere in here is one of our awards that we won on booking.com for being so good. And I think I learned a lot about customer service and driving it from a values point of view. The other thing I learned was probably less about all the good stuff and probably more about how to look after people, including systems. And I think I knew that I had a day job. I was a professional rugby player. I couldn't say, sorry, coach, I've got 3 people to check into my apartments. Is it okay if I miss training this afternoon? I had to have systems and people that I could rely on to be able to see those things through. So I invested a lot of time and a fair bit of money into making sure that the systems were good. But we were aggressive with our growth plan, right? So, we got 10 apartments in 18 months, and that requires a lot of energy, time, resources to be able to do that. And we had somebody that worked full time with us who was fantastic and did everything we needed to do and was really on board for the vision. But it was growing so quickly, and the systems were built for this level, but then suddenly it was here. And not being able to provide that support was really difficult for me with how I want to be able to support my people and people that I do business with. So, and that was kind of at the same time of, actually, this probably isn't the best thing to be doing at the moment and walking away from. So it was a good thing to do. Actually, as a result of walking away from it, my business partner and I, we decided that we would give her the option of taking 3 of the apartments on a lease to have for herself in her own business, nothing to do with us, but that she can run as a thank you for kind of dealing with this bit while we were having the catch up. And I think that's just kind of almost in retrospect of all the hard work that she'd done, if you know what I mean. But I think definitely learning about how to systemize properly and how to manage people was a massive learning curve. And it was certainly worth the time to learn that stuff,
Yeah, and also kind of, I suppose, the scale up side of it. You go from 1 to 10 in 18 months, and it's kind of a very different beast as you're kind of managing growth and everything that comes with it. I suppose it's, and also the environment. We've kind of chatted about it before, and all of a sudden the competitive environment and looking at your kind of macro world became full of Airbnb and some pretty big hitters. So, it's a great concept. But like you say, I suppose it's the smart businessman who kind of knows when it's time to exit and making those calls and being aware of making the decisions at the right time.
Yeah, I think it's almost the hardest bit, isn't it? It's easy to just kind of keep chasing the up and up and up, but I think realizing maybe it would have been different if personal life was a bit more steady and I knew I had more energy or had more resources to be able to go for it, and fight a noble battle. But actually it probably gave me the reality check I needed to think this could be, a battle that we're going to lose, and we'll lose a lot more than if we walk away from it now, doing what we've done. And then I think probably just to sort of quickly touch on, because the other ones are sort of in their infancy really, but the beer is People's Captain. That's one of my self-proclaimed nicknames. So we, through various contacts in brewers across here, People's Captain is a brand, and it has currently 3 beers to its name: an American Pale Ale, a Stout, and we're about to launch the NEPA New England Pale Ale. And it's kind of all been about having proper craft beer in rugby. Rugby and beer go hand in hand, and I don't think anybody's really kind of nailed that just yet. I think the lads who started Wolfpack have done a great job, and that's lager, and it's a great product, really well marketed, really well branded, and I think it's an excellent execution. I think my focus is probably more on kind of cask ales and craft brewing, and it's really exciting to be part of, because I haven't done retail before. All my other stuff was service based or transactional based with property stuff, and this and coffee are very much retail. So it's a lot more detail focused, numbers, forecasts. It stretches that side of me, which I've been keen to grow. And the coffee shop, I've been trying to open for 3 years now, but we finally secured a site, unfortunately, just before COVID hit. So with obviously cafes and restaurants being told to stay closed, we've just kept that for as soon as it opens back up again, we'll be able to open that up with a similar kind of idea behind a value-based organisation that I mentioned before.
So I think it's clear to say that you're very good at spinning lots of plates. You've got lots of different things going on, which is always welcome in the world of consultancy, as you kind of move from one client to the next. I think that would be great. So I think as the business world has paused, I think this is a really good opportunity for leaders, managers, employees to kind of take stock and think about what their next moves are. And I know that we've discussed this, that it's terribly overwhelming and unsettling for many people. But what Greg and I have been working on is some free resource that will come in the version of videos, webinars, podcasts, tools that we've seen, resources that we've read, that can hopefully give you a bit of food for thought as you've got this downtime to think about what you're going to do when you come out of this, when the business world is kind of rebooted and it comes out of hibernation. So we're going to be launching different chapters. We're going to start with leadership. Hopefully it'll be thought-provoking. That's what it's been built to do. And as I say, it's free. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This is a really scary time for lots of individuals and business owners. And I think what we've talked about doing is just providing information and content to people that could be useful. Ultimately, I think we've agreed that it's a great opportunity for people to reassess everything that's going on, and they can really take stock and relook at things and use this as an opportunity for when life does start again, they can be ready to rock and roll. However, we really appreciate, both of us, that this is an awfully unsettling time for people, and there's a lot of people that are really struggling with this. So hopefully what we're going to provide is not just really good content and going to help navigate people through this difficult time, but it might just be a welcome distraction to have something else to think about other than whatever's going on at home or what your worries might be going forward. Actually getting your head stuck into something that we've put together for 10, 15, 20 minutes might just take your mind off those things, and we're happy to provide it, and just interested to see what the comments might be.